So give them an idea of what it looked like a little bit. And the fruit trees are sort of the landmark here that's left anyhow. It's amazing that she can take care of all this. I have probably about the same amount of land that we live on, or a little bit less. Do you remember how much land was here? Is there an acre or something like that, or more?
Probably close to it, because it wasn't real wide, but it was just really deep, because it was, you know, from Sunset back, all the way back to the creek.
Yeah.
And then it was because the house was toward the rear of the property, because Mother wanted a big garden in front. And my dad put in this absolutely ginormous flower bed out there. He had, I think he had nearly 100 roses in it. Because what he did is, it was a square of land, and he took basically and drew a quarter circle in each corner, and then a big circle in the middle, and then of course all the little pieces, and there were different flowers in all of them. He had roses here, and gladiolus here, and there were iris, and I can't remember what was up there. But all the tall flowers, phlox and everything were in the middle, and it was just, it was insane. It was incredible. And then in the back, alongside the fence between us and the Nelsons, he had a big long garden. He had all kinds of asparagus, tomatoes, just everything. It was just, there was a lot of stuff here. Then Mom quit doing the garden, when the older she got, because it was easier to deal with, the stock from the store rather than all that other.
She lived to be 105. Amazing.
Dang, you're good.
We used to, in the summertime when it started raining, when the monsoon would come, we would always keep an eye on the creek so that, and oftentimes would see the water as it started coming down, and then of course, not being real smart, would all go play in the water.
Go play in it, yeah.
Waiting for that 8-foot wall of water to come down and reduce the gene pool a little bit. Fortunately, it never really happened.
Thank goodness.
Yeah, but we knew for a few days anyway that would have a swimming hole out back.
Information I got is they bought this property in the early 50s, maybe about 1950, but they didn't build on it for another 5 years or so, something like that. And does that sort of fit what you remember?
We came, because we moved from Chino Valley in 1950, because I was 3, and we moved to a place up on Iron Springs Road, kind of up the street just a little bit from Miller Valley School. And then we moved into another house right out at the T of Sunset and Whipple. And we were living in these places while Dad was building this house. And then when he finished it, and he finished it in probably 54, we moved into it then. And as the, I know nothing about when they bought the property or anything like that, but I, distinctly remember that, we lived in a couple of other places before this was finished, and we moved in.
Jenner, that was Irene's husband, he worked for APS.
Yep.
He was transferred to Flagstaff.
When they shut down the APS power plant here.
That's right, yeah.
Because they had a gas-fired plant here, and when they shut it down, he was given 3 choices for where they would, let him transfer. One was Tucson, the other was the Childs power plant, and then they had a brand new plant in Flagstaff.
So we used to have in Arizona an APS power plant here in Prescott?
Yeah, it was gas-fired. It's a gas-fired plant, or oil-fired. I'm not.
Sure.
I'm a
He was
little-
way
I never knew that.
The plants and shrubs were actually part of the final landscape by Margaret T. Morris Center. The trees and different things like that. Irene would bring home plants that needed mothered or cared for, and then she would get them growing, get them looking good, and we would take them back to the garden center and put them back out for customers. But Irene, when we would have, occasionally we would say, that plant is just not worth fooling with. And we'd say to her, you know, if you want that, you take it. She was asking me if she could take it. It was okay. And she'd bring those home, and some of those would be planted in this area. And it was amazing what she could make grow. She was a gardener's gardener, is the best way to say it. Her family were farmers here. And you know, Arizona's doing a centennial now. Irene was 5 years old when Arizona became a state, if you can imagine, and she lived to be 105 years old. So this lady was just an unusual person. When we started talking about a date, we just fished around. I talked with the people at Margaret T. Morris, and they said, well, how about this date? And I said, sounds good to me. I'll check with the family. And I checked with the family, and everybody said the 13th is an agreeable date. At that time, another son, a brother of Vaughn's, thought he could make it up here then, and it sounded good to him. So we went ahead and set this date, and then I learned a little bit later, that Irene's birthday, this would be the 106th anniversary of Irene's birthday today, June 13th. So it's a real special day. It's just ironic the way that it worked out, and I really thought that was special for that to happen. So I wanted to share that with you. Irene lived here 40 plus years, and I don't know exactly how many years. And they built the house. The house, as we've talked about, is already gone. They had to tear it down to build the parking lot over there. And I'm going to skip over some things we've already talked about here. She came back to Prescott in 1966. And the garden center had started a few years before that. And a mutual friend of ours, she came to me, a friend of Irene's and a friend of mine, one of my customers actually. She says, I've got a lady that would make you just a real good customer person and make you a real good person here at the garden center. And I said, well, fine, send her over to see me. And she came by and talked with her a little bit, and she just, well, instantly I knew, this is a lady that we needed at Waters Garden Center. She was raised in the area. She knew how to raise vegetables. She knew how to raise flowers in this sometimes harsh climate that we have. And she just knew all about gardening. And I knew a lot about plants and trees and shrubs, but I didn't know a whole lot about growing vegetables and flowers. In fact, I didn't know much at all, really. And she was a godsend to us. She just came to work, and she taught Harold Waters and the other people that worked at Waters Garden Center really how to grow flowers, and she taught customers how to do it too. She would be explaining to people how the climate is different. She knew exactly what not exactly, but she knew about the last frost dates so people could go ahead and plant their tomatoes and things like that. So this was just invaluable knowledge that she shared with us and our customers. She worked for us up until her probably late 80s, so mid to late 80s. We had a birthday party for her, and I've really forgotten the date on that, but she then, soon after that birthday party, that she moved up to Utah to be with her daughter up there. They invited her to come up there, and one of the rules they gave her was you could come up here as long as you can walk. And they said, you got to come while you can still walk. You can't wait till you get in bad shape and then come up. And she came to me and sold me that. She says, I just want you to know I'm going to move to Utah. It was like almost she needed my affirmation to go up. Bless her heart. She just was really concerned about how people felt, and she didn't want to hurt anybody's feelings. I would say that few people have ever touched Waters Garden Center and the Waters family in the way that IreneHatch did. And that's what this is about today here, right now. We just want to do a tribute to Irene for what she meant to us. And it's too bad customers can't be here, but I thought that's a little too ambitious, but because there are still people around Prescott that know or knew Irene at that time. This is a tribute to her and our memory of her. I guess is the best way I can say it. The words come to mind when I think of Irene, and you'll probably think of other words that would describe her, but I think of her as industrious, and those you know her know that's true. She's loving, and she's independent. And that's the things that really stand out to me, and I'm sure some of the family members, and like Vaughn, you know, his mother, he's going to think of some other things, but these are the ones that, and when I think of industrious, she took care. One little lady, she was probably about 5'2". And when she left Prescott, she was probably 5 foot. I'm serious. But she took care of all that property, all the way over, probably almost to here, or maybe about to here, something like that, and out to the street and back to the west. She took care of that whole property, one person. And that was amazing that she could do that. I thought, I hope I'm doing half that well, even when I get close to her age there in the 80s. When I think about her loving, I think of her as almost my second mother. I moved away from my family when I came to Arizona. My family's back east. And when I came out here, Irene, as she came to work for us, she became just like a mother to me. She was just a second mother. I guess that's the best way to say it. And she just loved us as a family. Bond, we were like a second family to her. I guess if I could say it that way. And when Lorna and I would travel sometime or have to go away on business for a few days or something, she would come and babysit our children during that time. They were getting up old enough that they were able to pretty much take care of themselves, but you still needed an adult person around there to keep peace in the family. And that's what Irene did. And she was so special in that way. The other name of the tree we're going to plant today, or one of the names, is called a serviceberry. It's an interesting tree. That's sort of a common, bland name, serviceberry. That doesn't really have any glamour to it at all. But boy, that sure describes Irene. She was in her church, in the community, and all these things. And I've had people from Chino Valley that grew up with her and then knew her after she was married and shared things about Chino Valley as well. And she was a lady that was into helping and caring and serving in the community in which she was here. The original plan was we planned to plant this tree at Charlotte Hall Museum. And that did not work out because we couldn't have a plaque down there. They would not let us put a plaque up on the tree when we did it. And here we'll be putting a plaque on it. I don't have the plaque ready yet, but we'll be putting a plaque on this tree. And so I called Dwayne to let him know that the plans had changed. And Vaughn's brother called him. He was the one I was sort of communicating with. And Dwayne suggested that this would be a good location for a memorial tree on this property, being it's part of this property, part of Margaret T. Morris, sits on property that Irene lived on and gardened faithfully so many years. And I thought, that's a good idea. I called the people at Margaret T. Morris, and they were very gracious to tell us that sounds like a good idea to them. And so they allowed us to plant another tree in the garden here. We had to look around for a special tree, and this, I think, is a very special tree. There's not a lot of these in Prescott, probably not a lot of them even in northern Arizona, but it carries another name. It's called a Juneberry, is the other name. And it's a tree that grows in the mountains in the west, is what it is. That's where it's native to. And God willing, that this tree will be here another 100 years yet. So we'll see what happens. It's capable of living that long. This variety is a specific variety of this serviceberry or Juneberry that you want, or whatever you want to call it. And it's called Autumn Brilliance. And it's a 3-season, or actually a 4-season tree. It starts out in the spring with clusters of white blossoms, and the blossoms have sort of a radiation of bands or rays coming out from. They're little clusters like cherry blossoms, pretty closest thing. And then about June, the berries start turning and ripening, and they are red in June. And they're on the tree, and it's a favorite tree for birds. The berries are just a little bit, they're like a real itsy bitsy cherry is what they're like. Actually, if you look at them close, you know, whether somebody got left on the tree after getting jostled around or not, it looks like a miniature apple that's about that big, is what it looks like. So it would be a tree that is real comfortable, and in the fall, they're brilliant red. And that's where it gets its namesake, the name that the growers have given it of Autumn Brilliance. And it's one of those trees, and the name we're going to give the tree, and this will be on the plaque, it will be Irene's tree. It won't be just Autumn Brilliance or something like that. It's going to be labeled on the plaque as Irene's tree. And we thought that would be the best way to do it. So if you're back in Prescott in a couple of years or so, can they come and knock on your door and ask to come out and look at this tree?
We'd be honored, of course.
Okay, you would be welcome to come by and take a look at this tree in a few more years. It's not a big tree. It will probably be the tree behind you over next to the fence here. It won't be quite that tall, probably about a fourth shorter than that. And it will be probably sort of an oval-headed tree and just nice pretty leaves on it. You can see it's got a nice dark green leaf. And around Arizona, anything that's got nice dark green leaves, you like it. But come back in a few years if you can and take a look at this tree.
So
As long as we're in the shade.
you can see Harold, he likes to describe plants. You can see where I get it from. Yeah. Irene taught Harold a lot about local gardening. And then Lisa and I came back in the early 90s to come in to work in the family business. And we had gone to Irene just as we came back. We had Irene's party. And so that influence, I mean, Irene taught Harold, Harold taught us, and I teach the community. Irene's influence is still very heavy at Waters Garden Center. The other one is that community service, that giving back, higher cause. There's a lot of Harold in that. There's a lot of Irene in that too. She affected the company culture, and that still carries forward today. And so you see that feeling. Everyone thinks Waters is a great company. Well, that's because Irene was there for so many decades, and then that affected Harold. And Harold, that just filters through. You don't just get rid of a company culture like that because you have the next generation coming into a garden center. That it just keeps going and going. So I think you got a little thumbprint of Irene still at Waters Garden Center, and I think still in the community. It still plays out. I think that you give back, and it plays out for many generations to come. That she's still here. And so this tree is very apropos. And so when Harold said we want to do a memorial tree or centennial tree as part of the celebration here at Margarita, I go, yeah, let's do that. That's great. I'll get the press here. Well, that's a good story. That'll be great. And so that's all I wanted to say. But I love having that influence. Well done, family. You did good. You're still affecting the community. Even though you're coming from all over the state, she's still here.
If you want to hear a funny story, at least to me it was funny. She came to me in the nursery one day and she says, you know, I don't understand. I'm having a problem with my hearing, I guess, or something in my brain. She says, there's a beep. Every so often I hear a beep it comes in my ears. And so she went to the hearing doctor, and they checked her all out, and they couldn't find anything wrong with her. And so then she went to her regular doctor, family doctor, and he checked her all out. He says, I can't find anything wrong with her. And she says, well, I keep hearing this beep every so often, and it's coming I don't, I must be in my mind or something. And so she came and told me about this, what had happened at the doctor's door. She says, I don't know what it is, but I guess I'll have to live with it. A couple of days later, she came by the garden center and she says, Harold, I found out what the beep was. You know? She says, you know those smoke alarms that they have when the battery gets low? They beep. I laughed along, and she would tell a thing like that on herself and laugh right along with it. That's the kind of lady this was. I thought, every time mine beeps, one of the low battery gets low in it at my house, I think of Irene. I can't think of that story.
You bet. 5 gallons of water to fill that thing up.
I appreciate you all coming today. Met a lot of
Well, we as a family are, on behalf of our mother, are much honored for the honor that you present to Mom. It's kind of funny in a way. I'm sorry that I was her kid, because as a kid, I missed a lot of those things that everybody else saw about her, because I was in the throes of, I know everything, just be quiet. So I missed part of those years, but later on in life, we tried to make up for it, and she was absolutely everything you said. She's an amazing woman who touched many people and will not go unremembered, but you know, she was just doing what she did best, being Irene.
This is awesome.
Thank you
Yeah.
for coming, all of you. I appreciate it. And it's been good getting to meet
You.